Recording. Good morning and welcome to worship in our Old Ship Meeting House. I say it's in for a few of us who are here helping to make the service happen. For you, you're here virtually, and I welcome you to this virtual space, our beautiful Old Ship Meeting House, Hingham, Massachusetts, Unitarian Universalist, the Old Ship Church. Welcome. And now we begin, as we do each week, with a bell and then music from Christopher. We have arrived at our time of worship, called from the busyness of our lives to a time of quiet, reflection, perhaps contemplation, a time to be nourished by music, by words, a time to reconnect with one another, if only through images on a screen, a time to be reconnected, to find ways to reconnect to the source of our lives, the source of enduring love. All fitting as we approach the beginning on the Jewish calendar of the High Holy Day of Yom Kippur. We have gathered for this time of worship, and it is good so to have gathered. Now I introduce Janet Asnes. Janet, who I did not make a co-host. Oh my goodness. Are you able to do that, Colin? Okay. We'll pause. My error.
Good morning.
Good morning. I think we're hearing you, Janet. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good morning. I love fall in Massachusetts. The changing seasons bring on a feeling of anticipation in me. And this beautiful autumn weekend was no different. Things are changing, and for me, that is bringing on a season of hope. And in that spirit, I found these words by Teresa Soto called We Hold Hope Close. In this community, we hold hope close. We don't always know what comes next, but that cannot dissuade us. We don't always know just what to do, but that will not mean that we are lost in the wilderness. We rely on the certainty beneath the foundation of our values and ethics. We are the people who return to love like the North Star and to the truth that we are greater together than we are alone. Our hope does not live in some glimmer of an indistinct future. Rather, we know the way to a world of which we dream, and by covenant and the movement forward of one right action and the next, we know that one day we will arrive home. So I light this chalice today for a season of renewal and hope.
Janet, in that spirit, a season of renewal and hope, we light the flaming chalice of our faith. And we're invited to sing. This is a hymn that many of you know well. It's become one that lives in our hearts, Spirit of Life, number 123. Perhaps some of you have the words in front of you. Perhaps some of you know the words, Spirit of Life, number 123 in our hymn books. And our introit, sung as a solo, recorded in advance kindly by Katie Weintraub, who is our alto soloist. And so we are pleased to see and hear Katie. Thanks at a distance to Katie. Beautiful. Well, welcome once again to worship in our Old Ship Meeting House, or from our Old Ship Meeting House. Welcome. It's good to be seeing you on screens and to know that we are together spiritually, even though physically apart at whatever distance. A number of announcements. Most of you have seen many of these or most in our weekly update, and we'll see additional announcements in our October newsletter that should be coming to you all via email and in a few cases in the mail on Tuesday, or being sent Tuesday. But just a couple of notes. Tuesday, as always on Tuesday nowadays, 4 o'clock, Conversations with Your Minister, with Ken. We'll be talking about growing compassion this week. At least that'll be my invitation. And then many of you have already seen the invitation, and there'll be a Zoom invite coming, I believe, tomorrow from the Board of Trustees to 2 parish conversations, Thursday evening and Saturday morning. We hope that everyone who's concerned about the future of our parish house, because that's what it'll be about, will make every effort to attend and hear the presentation and ask questions. Also, Saturday in the afternoon at 3 o'clock, and this will be in the newsletter with more detail, we're going to have an outdoor service right outside the door here. Of course, socially distanced, masked. There will be no singing for safety's sake, but we'll be together for about 20 minutes or so for a brief service Saturday afternoon. Details in the newsletter. Once again, welcome. And now I'm pleased to welcome, once again, as each week, our Interim Director of Religious Education for a time for all ages, Chloe Breday. Chloe.
Good morning, everyone. It's so great to see you all gathered this morning. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about Yom Kippur, one of the most important holiday on the Jewish calendar. It's a time of repentance, or as we might say to the kids, it's a time to say, I'm sorry. So I wanted to share in the spirit of that, this story with you this morning. So I'm going to share my screen, and this comes from a children's book, actually, by Linda Marshall. It's called Talia and the Very Yom Kippur. So I hope you enjoy this. Oh, okay, let's see. Talia loved visiting her grandparents, especially in early fall, when their farm was full of wonderful smells and tastes. Talia, would you like to help prepare the Yom Kippur breakfast for tomorrow? Asked Grandma. Wow, thought Talia, a Yom Kippur breakfast. She rubbed her tummy and answered, sure. Grandma put on her apron, took out a recipe, and said, first we'll make a kugel. We need 3 eggs. You know where to find them. Next, we need cottage cheese, noodles, raisins, sour cream, and sugar, said Grandma. Yum, thought Talia. My favorites. Talia searched the refrigerator and the pantry. She carried each ingredient very, very carefully to her grandmother. They boiled the noodles and mixed in the raisins, sour cream, sugar, milk, and eggs. They then put the kugel in the oven to bake. For the rest of the day, Talia helped Grandma cook. They made cookies and cakes and tuna salad and blintzes. Yum, said Talia. I can't wait to eat all this food. Grandma smiled. We have to wait, she said. It's for the Yom Kippur breakfast. But the next morning, Grandma gave Talia fruit and cereal as usual. And the rest of the family didn't eat at all. Everyone except for Grandma and Talia dressed nicely and went to synagogue. Why didn't anybody eat? Talia asked after the others had gone. It's a fast day, Grandma explained. Oh, said Talia, nodding. It must be a very fast day if no one had time for breakfast. But don't worry, Grandma said. When everyone comes back, it will be time for the Yom Kippur breakfast. The house was very quiet that morning. Talia read her books and played with her dolls. She went to the barn and patted the pony and played with the lambs and cuddled the rabbits. She looked at the leaves on the trees. They were turning beautiful fall colors, sort of like today outside. Every so often, one fell to the ground. It didn't seem like a very fast day. Talia went back inside. When is the big breakfast? She asked again. After sunset, said Grandma. And it's a break fast, not a breakfast. Talia looked puzzled. It's like a big breakfast, Grandma explained, but it comes at the end of a fast day. I don't think it's a fast day, Talia said. I think it's a slow day. Grandma laughed. A fast day is a day when people don't eat, she told Talia. On this holiday, Jews fast and pray and think about how to be better people. That doesn't sound very yummy, said Talia. I thought today was Yom Kippur. I thought it was going to be delicious. It's Yom Kippur, said her grandmother, but it will be delicious. Just wait. First, people spend time thinking about things they might have done better. If someone did something wrong or something that hurt someone's feelings, this is a time to ask for forgiveness. Talia thought for a minute. Grandma, she said, remember that lamp my doll broke? Her grandmother nodded. It was me, Talia said. Not my doll. I'm sorry I broke it. I'm sorry I lied. Her grandmother hugged her. That felt delicious. And I'm sorry I yelled at you then, her grandmother said. Will you forgive me? They hugged again. Yum, said Talia. That feels really good. And Talia thought of something else. Grandma, she said, I know we already made the food, but won't you need help setting the table? Grandma smiled. Yes, I will. Can you help me? Of course, said Talia. So at sunset, she carried napkins, silverware, and dishes to the table. She set out plates of bagels and pitchers of juice. Grandma took the rest of the food out of the refrigerator. Yum, they said together when everything was ready. Thanks to Talia and her grandmother, they all enjoyed a very sweet Yom Kippur. And thank you everyone for that. And I think it's a great reminder to just, maybe today's a good day to say I'm sorry and to enjoy some delicious food.
Thank you, Chloe. Wonderful story, beautifully told, important message. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We come to our time of sharing joys, sorrows, and concerns. Quite a number of you have asked for a candle to be lit on your behalf, and I will light those candles. Eva Marks has asked for a candle in remembrance of her brother George, who died yesterday morning at the age of 94. We extend our heartfelt condolences to you, Eva, and all of your family. This from Judy Flaherty and others for Ding Wilding Smith. Ding returned from the hospital this week to her home at Linden Ponds with the help of hospice care. Ding died peacefully earlier this morning. She was 93 years old. She'd been a long-time active member of Old Ship. In all of her kindness and feistiness, we knew Ding well, a beautiful soul. She always said what she meant, and we will miss that as we will miss her dearly. And we pause in a moment of silent remembrance with gratitude. She'll live long in our hearts. This candle can share Kitty Ward's candle, which was a candle of gratitude, in particular to Judy Flaherty and Diane Elliott for their unflagging care of Ding, particularly in the last days, along with old friend Brian Genbauer. And also from Judy. Earlier this week, Judy asked that a candle be lit, and she is herself a teacher, that a candle be lit for the resilience of children and the ingenuity, teamwork, and support and sleepless nights of parents and teachers. So we light that candle. Diane Elliott asked for a candle for her friend of many, Ava Studley, who died peacefully last night. Ava was a lifelong Hingham and Hull resident, a member of our neighboring church up the street, Congregational Church, a teacher at Foster School for many years. She will live in many hearts. And this candle burns for Avis and for all those who mourn her loss. We light a candle for Chuck Malmy, who's returned home from the hospital after his bout with pneumonia and is doing well. A candle for Angela Harvey, still in the hospital, recovering from surgery. We're keeping both Angela and her husband Nigel in our hearts for their safety and well-being. We've used all our candles, but not all our joys and sorrows. This from Julian and John Menzies Cohen, grandparents to Nikki and Ellie Gibson, active in our congregation. They wish to share their joy in celebration of Nikki's 15th birthday today, September 27th, along with their joy of being grandparents for 15 years. Happy birthday, Nikki. These candles burn as well for any joys, sorrows, and concerns unexpressed this morning among us, yet deeply felt even so. We hold them all as we hold each other in our hearts. So may we gather our hearts and minds in the spirit of meditation, prayer, and then silence. Just here, wherever here is for each of us, and just now, present. Present for the fullness of whatever our life has brought us to in this moment. Present for one another. Present. And from that presence, allowing the yearnings of our hearts to arise, our prayers to the God of our hearts, God of many names and beyond names. Prayers especially for those among us who are ill or struggling in any way. Prayers for those who mourn. Prayers for our nation, prayers for the world. Prayers that, as Yom Kippur approaches this evening, for our Jewish kin, prayers that we may find it in our hearts to forgive and be forgiven, and to begin again in love. Present with the yearnings of our hearts, may we enter a quiet time. May it be renewing. For our anthem, I'm pleased to introduce our bass soloist, Rich Jensen, and his wife, Ginger Jensen, who will be playing the piano for This Little Light of Mine, an arrangement that Rich has created. This Little Light of Mine with Rich and Ginger. Thank you.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I I'm gonna let it shine all through the night. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Just beautiful, Rich. Thank you so much to both of you, Rich and Ginger. We have two readings this morning. The first will be shared by Mid Walsh. Mid is part of our sacred text group, which has been reading through the Tao Te Ching, and this reading derives from that text. So Mid, thanks so much for being our reader, one of our readers this morning.
The first reading comes from the Tao Te Ching, chapter 15, as translated by Stephen Mitchell. The ancient masters were profound and subtle. Their wisdom was unfathomable. There's no way to describe it. All we can describe is their appearance. They were careful as someone crossing an iced over stream, alert as a warrior in enemy territory, courteous as a guest, fluid as melting ice, shapeable as a block of wood, receptive as a valley, clear as a glass of water. Do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving till the right action arises by itself? The master doesn't seek fulfillment, not seeking, not expecting. She is present and can welcome all things. Here ends the reading.
Thank you, Mid. Thank you very much. Our second reading comes from a contemporary source and will be shared by Rich Elliott. Rich, thanks so much.
The second reading is from the Franciscan brother Richard Rohr, who is the director of the Center for Action and Contemplation in Albuquerque. And this is a recent piece that he shared. I recommend for your spiritual practice for the next 4 months that you impose a moratorium on exactly how much news you are subject to. Hopefully, not more than an hour a day of television, social media, internet news, magazine and newspaper commentary, and/or political discussions. It will only tear you apart and pull you into the dualistic world of opinion and counter-opinion, not divine truth, which is always found in a bigger place. Instead, I suggest that you use this time for some form of public service, volunteerism, mystical reading from the masters, prayer, or preferably all of the above. You have much to gain now and nothing to lose, nothing at all. And the world, with you as a stable center, has nothing to lose and everything to gain. Here ends the reading.
Amen to that. Thank you, Rich. Great message. It is time for our offering and offertory. The offering can be given on at our oldship.org website page. There's kind of a button, a virtual button to press and make your gift to help sustain the ministries of our congregation. All the ministries of nurturing the soul, nurturing our children, reaching out to the wider world, helping to create justice. So we hope you will give as generously as you are able. You're invited to do so. Our offertory anthem, I Know I Can, by Gagne and Hamilton, comes from Christopher. Christopher.
Though days be dark with storms, and burdens weigh my heart, though troubles weigh at every turn, I can go on. My sorrows heal my soul, and burdens make me strong. Though troubles wait at every turn, I can go on. And though the journey is long, the destination is near. Though troubles wait at every turn, I can go on. So brothers, take my hand, and sisters, sing my song. When hope awaits at every turn, I know we will go
Thank you, Christopher, and thanks to all of you who, with your gifts, sustain our work. I want to remind you at this point, before I share my message, for the morning that you can download the order of worship for each service. We send it out on Saturday in an email as part of our Sunday reminders. You will discover, if you download that and hold it in your hands on Sunday morning, that some mornings I manage not to follow it exactly, but we stay pretty close, and it may be a help to you. It includes words and music for the hymns. So spirituality for these times. Spirituality for these times, a time of urgent social issues, contention, of contentious election upcoming, of the ongoing climate crisis, of the pandemic, these times. Yet is spirituality for these times any different from spirituality at any other time, as it would be, should be, or as we would wish it to be? And anyway, what does this elusive, slippery word spirituality mean? Spirituality. Well, as many of you will recall, I often go back when talking about matters of spirit or spirituality to the root of the word in Latin, spiritus. Spiritus means breath, and it's the word that was used in Latin to translate the Hebrew ruah, and that's the word that was used in Genesis for God's breathing life into Adam. So for me, that means that spirituality has to do with whatever it is that gives us life. Not just biological life, but something more enduring than that. A life abundant, the feeling of being alive and being connected to all life, not just human life, all life, to the cosmos, for that matter, the entirety of creation. So this means I'm not just talking about a momentary rush of adrenaline or endorphins, which is usually not a bad thing, pleasant. Rather, I'm talking about something more enduring than that. Which indeed means that there is really no such thing as a spirituality for these times as compared to other times. So what's the point then of my message this morning? Well, on one level, I suppose I just want to remind you and me, I'm always preaching to myself, of the importance of the spiritual dimension of our lives, however we might understand that, and perhaps, indeed, more important at some times than other times. Perhaps more important at times of challenge for us, or when we're feeling unmoored, if you will. And if you're allergic to the word spiritual for whatever reason, use whatever word you like to signify the whatever it is that grounds you, that centers you. Okay, that reminder is out of the way. So what I do want to spend more time on then this morning has to do with how we get access to the so-called spiritual dimension of life, the ways we can reconnect when we feel disconnected, when we don't feel spiritually alive and awake. In this regard, the poet and minstrel, Unitarian Universalist poet and minstrel Rick Maston, a long time ago, wrote a poem that is relevant, Burnout, a Misnomer, he called it. In the poem, he uses as his metaphor a television, whose tube has burned out. Remember tubes in the old days? So the tube has burned out. Hence his last lines, returning from the metaphor, go like this. A case of burnout demands a second opinion. And this is mine. Find an outlet. And if the cord doesn't reach, move the set. I like that a lot. In other words, plug ourselves back in to whatever is our source or our sense of the source, whatever it is that gives us access to fuller life and to connection with all life. Plug back in. Well, for me, here are 5 ways, in no particular order, that I plug back in, try to reconnect to the source. But these are just examples, my examples. The point is for each of us to find our own ways to reconnect, to plug back in when we're feeling disconnected, unmoored, and so on. First, for me, those of you who know me won't be surprised, running. Running in particular along the shore in beautiful places or in the woods. In the woods where literally the trees and I are breathing together, sharing breath back and forth, in and out. And so easier to wake up to life more fully, to feel more connected to not just to these woods and these trees, but to all life present. For others, it might just be walking or stepping out into your backyard or looking out your window to feel that connection, to reconnect to an experience of our place in the family of things, to borrow a phrase from poet Mary Oliver. Then second, by contrast to running or walking, sitting still, meditation. What might happen when you're sitting still? So I go back to a couple of lines from the Tao Te Ching that we heard earlier. Do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Which means no longer quite so attached to the incessant flow of thoughts. The brain is a thought-making machine, which may include fears and worries, the mud. Instead, if only for a moment or two during those 20 minutes of just sitting, mud clearing. For me, maybe then a little more able to, when I stand up and re-enter my day, to be a little more like, now and then, the master in that reading. Careful, alert, courteous. And why? Because I've disconnected a little bit more from what we often call ego, with all its worries and fears, and reconnected with, a little bit anyway, with the larger self, cosmos, divine reality, of which I've always been a part. I preach this all the time, even though I so often forget. Third, reading ancient religious texts or philosophy or poetry can wake me up, evoke a response of, so that's the way it is. And fourth, a phrase you've heard me utter many times, conversations about things that matter, that really matter in some deep sense. Conversations, whether about the meaning of a poem, an ancient text, or the meaning of life, or the urgency of some issue of social justice. Conversations that wake me up not because together we come to some earth-shattering, fresh conclusion or transformative, or even not because we come to some agreed-upon conclusion, rather because the engaged conversation itself awakens not only the mind, but the soul. Wakes me up. Philosopher Jacob Needleman suggests just this when he wrote that thinking together awakens not only the mind, but the soul, the larger self. And he went on, of the moral and ethical dimension of such conversations, he wrote that thinking together is a preparation for living together. I like that a lot. Thinking together is a preparation for living together. And fifth, even when it takes extra effort, because at the moment I may not be feeling plugged in, the fifth thing is acts of kindness and service or activism. These two wake me up in all the ways I've been describing today. A brief story of my own from a long time ago. I was maybe 20 years old or so and feeling down for some reason or another. At 20 you feel down sometimes. Any time in our life we can feel down. Well, anyway, I was driving somewhere on some errand, feeling this way, and I saw someone stop by the side of the road clearly struggling to change a tire. So I stopped, pulled over, helped. Wasn't hard. And I felt in the doing and afterwards more alive, more connected, not just to this person I'd helped, but to life. Simple act of kindness and service. Yes, simple, but so easy. Again, so easy to forget. Well, finally, for this morning, please notice that none of these 5 ways of awakening to life in its fullness, connecting to spirit, has anything to do, now we're going back to the Richard Rohr reading, has anything to do with watching the news, tracking social media, reading the newspaper, and so on. The way I put it for myself, though I don't always follow my own advice, the news is that addictive. The way I put it for myself is that I need to know only enough news to enable me to be a better citizen. And then I should stop. And the virtues of limiting your time with the news, well, paraphrasing Richard Rohr, it will mean that we have more time for all of these other things, the practices that keep us connected. He named his own list, similar to mine, the practices that help us to be more effective and kind human being, more truly alive, truly awake. So really, to put all this simply in the form of an invitation, may we each seek to reduce the poisons that come into our lives and to increase the nourishment, the spiritual nourishment that comes into our lives, so that we become a little more fully engaged, effective, kind, awake, and alive. In other words, the sort of human beings that our families, our communities, our nation, and the world, sort of human beings that we need. So may it be, now and always. So may it be. Extinguish these flames, lit with love, and in many cases profound sadness and loss, in other cases with gratitude or with joy. I extinguish these flames, but not the love with which they have been lit. And I extinguish this, the flaming chalice of our faith, but not all the values that it represents. Values of truth-telling, truth-seeking, values of freedom and justice and peace. These values we carry with us wherever we go. Invite us to sing again. It's a hymn many of you know. Those of a certain age know it from Cat Stevens, but it's an old Irish tune with words by Ellen Fargeon. Morning Has Broken. It's number 38 if you have a hymn book, or as I say, you may know the words. Morning has broken. Morning has broken like the first morning. As we go forth from this virtual space, but this real time together, may we take whatever inspiration we have found for our hands and hearts and bring that inspiration along with our love, our kindness, our compassion into the world we share with our neighbors, with all life everywhere. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen. Our choral benediction, our Christopher benediction. Thank you, Christopher. Chaconne in F major by Louis Couperin. Our service concludes. May we go forth in peace.